4-3 in a shootout, your final here at First Ontario Centre, the Rochester Americans over the Hamilton Bulldogs. Laura Barney with Derek Wills. And Derek, we'll start by getting your thoughts.
Well, they say that the first game at home after a long road trip, and the Hamilton Bulldogs are coming off a really long 9-game, 18-day road trip, is usually tough to win. And it was great to see the Dogs score the first goal tonight. It was actually the first time in 11 games that they did so. And even though they have battled back to win a bunch of those games where they fell behind early, to get that first goal, I think, was the way they wanted to start this hockey game. Unfortunately, the Rochester Americans would tie it up before the end of one and then score a really weird goal to start the second on a dump in that took a horrible bounce off the glass behind Robert Meyer's net. And he came out to play the puck, got caught, and it was a tap in for the Rochester Americans to take a 2-1 lead. That seemed to take a little wind out of the Hamilton Bulldogs' sails. The Rochester Americans then make it 3-1. And the Hamilton Bulldogs have a horrible record when trailing through 2 periods of play this season. But they did come from behind to beat the St. John's Ice Caps when they were trailing following 40 minutes on Wednesday. So we knew they could do it. So I wasn't shocked. I was pleasantly surprised, but not shocked to see them come back and score a couple of goals in the third period. Jonas Nattinen snapping a 7-game pointless streak and a 27-game goalless streak. Good to see him get off the schneid in his first game back after being a healthy scratch. And then what can you say about Gabriel Dumont? I just love the guy. He scores his team-leading 19th goal of the season, and he ties the game at 3 and helps the Hamilton Bulldogs force overtime and eventually a shootout. Unfortunately, as good as Robert Meyer was in the game, in the first 65 minutes, 3 goals and 3 shots in the shootout. I thought 2 of them were pretty bad goals where he backed up a little too quickly into his net and got down a little too low, and they just put pucks over his glove. But Robert Meyer was really good, helped the Hamilton Bulldogs pick up a point. But the Rochester Americans needed that game more than the Hamilton Bulldogs. They're in a fight for that final playoff spot, and they picked up 2 important points. And I think the Dogs, given the circumstances, did pretty well against a good Amherst team tonight.
How important is it this time of year? The Bulldogs unfortunately have that news of knowing that they're not going to make the playoffs, but to show this kind of character, to come back and still fight for every point.
It's tough because when they left on that 9-game, 18-day road trip, they were 9 points out of a playoff spot, and we knew it was going to be tough for them to get back into the playoff race, and that they were going to have a really good road trip against some excellent teams. And 6 of the 9 games on that trip were against teams in the top 5 in the AHL's overall standings. For the Dogs to pick up points in 6 of 9 games on the road, I think they did an outstanding job battling through some adversity and beating some tough opponents. So the fact that they came home and were actually still in contention for a playoff spot when they returned to Hamilton after that road trip, I think says a lot about the character of this Bulldogs team. Unfortunately, they were mathematically eliminated from the American Hockey League's Calder Cup playoffs on Thursday night. And coming to the rink the day after that, it's got to be tough for the coaches and for the players because they battled to try to stay in the playoff race. So when that's taken away from you, you have to find something else to play for. And Stephan Lebeau talked to me about it this morning. The players have to play for themselves. Some guys are playing for contracts. Some guys are trying to earn a job in the American Hockey League for next season or in the National Hockey League for this season. When the Hamilton Bulldogs season comes to an end, the Montreal Canadiens are going to call some guys up. Those guys may play. They may not play in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but they're going to be up and they're going to be a part of it. So guys want to be one of those black aces and playing for their teammates as well. And I think the Hamilton Bulldogs did play for each other tonight. Sven Andrighetto got speared by Mike Zigomanis late in the second period, and Nick Tarnasky and Gabriel Dumont went after him, and they stood up for their teammates. So tough when you're coming off getting knocked out of the playoffs, but all in all, I thought the Hamilton Bulldogs put in a good effort tonight, and they did it in front of a bigger crowd. Almost 6,500 here for Pucks and Paws, and I think the team owes the fans that. They have not played well at First Ontario Centre this season, but the fans certainly got their money's worth tonight.
All right, Derek, before we wrap up, let's preview the last 2 games the Bulldogs play.
Yeah, one away game. That'll be in Cleveland next Tuesday against the Lake Erie Monsters, who, despite being behind the Hamilton Bulldogs in the standings, are still mathematically alive for a Calder Cup playoff spot. So the Dogs had a chance to play spoiler against the Amherst tonight. Couldn't get the job done, but they might have another opportunity against another North Division rival in the Lake Erie Monsters on Tuesday. And then back to First Ontario Centre for the final game of the 2013-2014 season next Saturday against a Syracuse Crunch team that the Hamilton Bulldogs have played well against so far this season. And, you know, it's hard to believe that the season is coming to an end. I don't think any of us thought that this team was going to miss the playoffs. When you take a look at this team on paper, you see a lot of talent. And I think it's been a disappointing season because we all expected the Hamilton Bulldogs would be playing in the Calder Cup playoffs this year. Didn't know how far they would go, but we all thought that they would be there and have a chance to compete for a championship. So it's been a long year. It's been an up and down year. And all we can do now is go through those final 2 games, try to look for some bright spots like Connor Crisp, who could be a big part of this team next year, and then start looking ahead to the Hamilton Bulldogs' 19th season. And there's some good prospects coming in. I'm sure the Montreal Canadiens will sign some good veterans. So 2 games to go, and then we start planning for what we hope will be a lot better season next year.
All right, Derek. Well, thank you very much for your thoughts as always. And now we're going to see what our coaches had to say.
Well, we never stopped working, even though we were trailing by 2 goals. A little bit like our season, we like to compete, and this is what we did. And obviously, we lost in shootout, but with the comeback in the 3rd period, I thought that it felt like a win. Certainly, it's a matter of pride, first of all, for the team, for the players, to make sure that we compete and we give our best for every game. And it was important, especially here in front of our fans, that even though we're missing playoffs, we want to show them that we're a team that works hard every night. I think that we proved that throughout the season. Obviously, we would have liked to turn and made the playoff, but the effort was there tonight, and we saw some very good positive things from some young players also. So we're going to try to finish the best way we can do.